Well, hi, everyone. I want to welcome you to Group Practice Profits Podcast, where our goal is to help you increase your group practice profit, reduce your group practice overwhelm, and help you have more time off with your families. Well, hi, everyone. We're back with Group Practice Profits Podcast, and I'm here with my friend and colleague, Joe Bavonese.
Hi, Casey.
Hi, and today we are going to cover another group practice issue that we see a lot, and that is how group practice owners are actually leaking money. Money is rolling off the edge of this table, and we would like to help you keep more of it. And one of the ways that we see that happening, that we're actually leaking money, is by spending a little too much time focusing on the clinician role. Last time we talked about the 6 roles, where we talked about visionary, clinician, operations, marketing, finance, and mentoring. And where we are seeing that people are leaking money, one place, spending too much time in the clinician role. So, Joe, can you talk a little bit about what does that mean? Does that mean we're supposed to stop seeing clients?
No, not at all. I think in the beginning, most people start when they have a pretty full practice, and then they might add, 1 or 2 or 3 associates to work under them, but they still have a full practice. And financially, you quickly learn as a group practice owner that if I see the client, I make 2 or 3 times more money than if they see the client. And so it's tempting to want to keep your income up to keep seeing as many clients as you can. But sooner or later, you realize that having a full solo practice while you're trying to run a group practice is sabotaging the group practice growth. And so most people will gradually begin reducing their caseload and creating more time to work on the practice. And we know several people that have gone all the way down to 0 clients eventually when they have a very large, successful practice. Although I'd say most clinicians seem to still, see some clients even as they get bigger. My one friend I know who has a $5 million practice. He still sees 8 or 10 clients a week. So it's just
That's phenomenal.
If you enjoy doing it, like I still enjoy doing therapy, so I do therapy every week. You may decide to keep doing it, but that's the trajectory that we normally see.
And I highly recommend that as a trajectory. I actually went the opposite way. I had retired from practice completely and was running my business coaching business. And then when I saw the great opportunities for helping more people and making more money in group practice, I opened a group practice right away, and I had no clients. So it was pretty exciting trying to fill somebody else up and pay for the bills and everything when I had 0 clients. So I don't recommend that as a strategy. I recommend filling yourself up first, knowing that you can get clients, and then bringing on other people to take the overflow. One of the things that I often see, Joe, is people thinking that a group practice, they're just supposed to bring people in as their overflow. So they want to be seen as the primary clinician in the business. And then if they don't want a particular client, when the client calls, they give that client to the associate. It's almost like referring out, but you're referring to somebody that's in your practice. Is there a way that we could be leaking money doing something like that?
Yeah, that causes a lot of problems. I mean, one occurs to me is branding, because one of the challenges when you start a group practice is most of the referral sources want to see you because you're the star who's been getting all these referrals in your community. And one of the challenges is, getting people to refer to your other clinicians. So if you continue to take the bulk of the quote good referrals and give the people working for you the ones you don't want, you're never going to change the mindset and the branding in the community of who you are. And secondly, you're never going to reduce the size of your caseload. And that has several consequences, one of which I think is financial, we talked about, but also there's a certain mindset. If constantly running through your brain, 30 or more hours a week is clinical issues, that's incompatible with the part of your brain that needs to process the other 5 roles of the group practice owner that you talked about in the last podcast.
I think that's a really important point, because as a group practice owner, we want to look at which role could bring us the most bang for our time and money at any given point, and then figure out what action steps need to go with that particular point. So for example, if I need to get in more referrals, I need to sit down and look at my marketing. Where do I need better online marketing? Do I need better community marketing? If I need better community marketing or online marketing, what skills do I need to have, or who do I need to hire to help me with that? There's all of those decisions. And when I'm sitting there trying to figure out how to help somebody restructure their cognitions, it's a very different mental space.
Yeah. And similarly, when I find a lot of group practice owners don't want to spend the money on an admin person, and then they want to do everything themselves after having a full practice. They're spending 2 or 3 hours a week making copies, sending out receipts, returning phone calls, and things like that. And that really clutters your brain with a lot of tasks that have to be done. And it keeps you from having some of the more expansive thinking that's really going to help you strategize how to grow the practice.
That's a really good point. And I empathize with people that have a small group practice when they're starting. They're under 250,000. And I mean, that's awesome that you're at that number. It's not that it's small, but it's small compared to the place where you start to feel some ease, which is the 650 to 700. So when you're at that smaller place and you might not have an admin person yet, answer your referrals and your income is directly related to how you answer that phone. If an average client spends $1,500 with you and you miss 10 calls a month, that's potentially $15,000 of money that you've lost. So either we need to hire an admin, but if that doesn't feel like a risk you can take at this moment, then you need to have your schedule freed up enough to be able to answer those phones, because what you make in that 1 hour will almost always be less than what you will make when you give that client to an associate. So here's what I mean. Let's say you pay 50%. So for every 2 clients that go with an associate, you can take 1 hour and work on your business planning or mentoring or working on your finances, whatever it is you need to take that next step to move the needle in your business. And if they can see, again, if each client is worth $1,500 to you, and that will be different for every person, you'll want to know that number. But based on that number, you will then know most likely that it won't make sense for you to see all the clients. I mean, that's just the bottom.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, there's no doubt that answering the phone live, the conversion rates are so much higher than leaving a voicemail. I think especially in this, internet age that we live in, people are impatient. They expect rapid response. And if they don't hear back from somebody, they'll often go somewhere else. So that's a really good point. So every session that you're doing means some phone calls are going unanswered if you don't have anyone else taking that responsibility.
And we have an upcoming episode planned where we're going to talk about when do you hire an admin, when can you afford to hire an admin, and what you can have that admin do, whether you want that admin to be in your office or remote. There's lots of options. So stay tuned for that. That'll be in an upcoming episode. But in this one, we really want to talk about how we're leaking money. One of the things, Joe, is that if you are seeing too many, or if I'm seeing too many counseling clients, I'm not mentoring my clinician. And if they don't keep their retention up, if I don't help them figure out how to do that, then I'm going to lose money. And emotionally, I'm going to get mad at them. And then I'm going to think I have to see all the clients. And then we get into that loop.
Yep. A very, very common issue. If you take your eye off the ball and how your staff is doing, it's very easy for that to slip through the cracks. And next thing you know, you look at it and you're horrified at how bad somebody's doing retaining your clients.
And my experience has been trying to help them with their retention after they've gone for 7 months with bad retention almost always results in losing the clinician because they think they've been doing just fine.
Yeah, most clinicians, I think they're doing better in that score than they are. And that's why, like you said, if you can address it right from the beginning, when you notice some trend going in the wrong direction, it's going to go a lot better.
And this is just something that I've been thinking and studying a lot about lately, is about high performers and what makes high performers different than other people. We all have the same 24/7. We're all smart. We all have an entrepreneurial bend. But what makes high performers, those people who have much bigger businesses, what's the difference? And sometimes we like to say, well, they are private pay because private pay pays so much, or they're insurance because they get so many more referrals. But I think the difference is really sitting in those CEO roles that are not clinician and figuring out what's my next step to be relevant, to make the business grow, to really move the needle in those, I'm mixing metaphors here, but in that three-legged stool, what is the next step that I need to take? And every time we're sitting with a client, hopefully we're incredibly present with the client on our good days, and that we're incredibly present with the client and we want to be there with them. And then after 6 or 8 hours of that, is there really a lot of space left over to sit back and say, where do I want this business?
And worse than that is the phenomenon that unfortunately we've all experienced of being in a session with a client and thinking about our business instead of what's going on in the session. And that's a sign that you're definitely not allocating enough time to work on the business if you find your mind drifting in that direction during a therapy.
Right. So we don't want to judge ourselves because number one, it's happened to all of us. But second, we want to use that as an indicator that says, I need more mental space, as Joe said before, to be able to work on this business. Because if we don't have the space to really step back and say, what will help me take this business to the next level? If we don't have that space, what happens is we end up with a to-do list with 500 things on it, and we're doing tasks. And then somebody calls and wants to see us, and we go, okay, great, because that's a fun thing. We're good at that. And then we lose track of where the business is going. You know, one of the things as a clinician, we really don't have to confront our fears too much because we've done that already. When we were baby clinicians, we were terrified. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I said that. My friend Rachna and I always like to say, we'd like to go back to our first 20 clients and apologize, and say, I know so much more now. I'll give you a year of therapy free. But it was scary, right? When the client left, it's like, oh my God, did I do okay? Now we don't have that same angst as a rule once we've been being a therapist for a long time. And it's easy to get into the comfort of that rather than face the angst of what's my next step? Where do I have to stretch in order to build this business? I mean, when I think about, a business coach said to me the other day, you're halfway through the year, Casey. How can you, just so you can hear the fear coming up, how can you double in the last half of the year what you did in the first half of the year? And I'm like, oh. And what went through my mind, Joe, was he thinks it's really possible. And I was like, I never thought that was possible. Yeah. And so, but if I'm not going there, it's just real easy to sit there and be a clinician in the room and do the work that's comfortable and easy and that brings joy to our heart change.
Yep, it's definitely a balancing act. And I experienced, again, the idea of seeing less clients meant bringing in less money, which was scary. And that's why you have to have, as we talked about last podcast, I should say, the metrics and the finances in place to know that if you work more on the business and it generates more referrals and you mentor the clinicians to have better retention, all those numbers are going to go in the positive direction, even though you've reduced your case.
And I was thinking about another thing. You and I have both had the experience of losing a clinician when we didn't have a large practice. And when we have that 250 or under practice and we lose a clinician, it's a big deal. It could be the operating expenses that aren't getting paid. So it's a big deal. When I, as a clinician, are seeing a few clients, if I lose a therapist, I can instantly pick up more and get those numbers a little bit back on track. Either take the overflow from that clinician's clients or pick up a few more myself, and I have room and space to be able to do that. If I'm already at a full caseload myself, that happens, we're toast. One of my favorite expressions, I heard it on like some reality TV show, but somebody said, Warren Buffett said it, and that is the expression, we are tripping over dollars to pick up pennies. And I think when we're stuck in our clinician role and we see that, $100, $200 client walking in the door times 4 times a month, it's hard to say no to that money. But every time you don't mentor, as we said, every time you don't mentor one of your people, it can be disastrous to your bottom line, especially if you're paying for advertising.
Yeah, Casey, that reminds me of something that a business coach said to me the second year I had my group practice, because again, I was advocating to keep my caseload over 30 clients a week. And the reason I started the group practice is I realized I still needed more money to support my family of 5, even though I thought, all I need is to see 30 or even 40, which is too many people a week, in my opinion. And then he goes, you're just a high-priced line worker. He goes, you're into the labor tradition, 1 unit of time for 1 unit of money. And he goes, I want you to expand that into multiple units of money for 1 unit of time. And that really hit me on the head like a hammer, and really helped me to expand what I thought was possible.
Right. It goes back to that button chair hours, right? I mean, you just, yeah. Well, this has been a really fun topic, Joe. So if you think it's possible that you might be leaking money by staying too much in your clinician role, I really invite you to journal about this, maybe run the numbers. And again, if you can give 2 clients to a potential a person in your practice and you see one less, you can exponentiate your income. I mean, it's just completely true. And that's how Joe has grown 15 to 25% year after year after year to over a $2 million. So we invite you to spend a little bit of time with this. One of the things that Joe has said over and over and over again is usually the reason that a practice doesn't grow is us. We are the ones, the group practice owner is the one that stops the growth. So let's see where your limiting beliefs and your lack of action are coming in. Now, that said, I recognize that you're working incredibly hard. And in an upcoming podcast, we're going to be talking about how do I manage the overwhelmed day-to-day when I'm wearing those different. We want to help you with that. But in the meantime, think about how can I create some more space? Is it better time blocking where I have certain days that I'm just seeing clients? Is it days and times that you can spend mentoring your people? Are there ways where your fear is getting in the way? You can do this. We believe in you. So until next time, Joe, final thoughts?
Yep. Just keep working on the practice and hopefully apply the things. I'm sure there's 1 or 2 or 3 things in every podcast that are just going to stick with you. And as Casey said, journal about that, talk about it with those who know you well, and take action. Application is what makes growth happen.
Say that again. Application is what makes growth happen. Love that. Love that. All right. Bless you guys. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye now.